2025 is almost halfway over. You've been going to the gym consistently, you've been trying to eat better, but you're still not able to build as much muscle as you would have hoped. And in today's video, I want to show you exactly what you should be doing over the next 6 to 7 months to build as much muscle as possible so you can actually build that muscular physique that you want so badly. The first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you're training with a purpose. So many times I see people in the gym, and I'm talking the majority of people I see in the gym, they go in, they don't even know what muscle they're training that specific day. They're just going through the motions, doing this exercise, doing a couple more sets, maybe doing some drop sets. They're all over the place. There's no structure involved, right? You need to have a structured plan laid out and train with an actual purpose. Go into the gym knowing what muscle you are training and hit that muscle hard. And you need to master the form. So many people do not care about their form once they get to a certain point because all they're focused on is progressive overload and making sure that they increase the weights, increase the reps, because if that number keeps going up, it fuels their ego, they feel great, but that's not what you're after. You're not after those numbers going up. If you're a power lifter, cool, be a power lifter. You're not supposed to be watching this video. This is for people who actually want to build a muscular physique. You need to master your form, right? You need to make sure that your form is correct and actually targets the muscle that you're actually trying to train. Because if your form's not good, you're not hitting that muscle correctly, you're not building as much muscle, you can lead to injury. All these bad things can happen. And if you're in the gym and you're training hard, you want to get as much out of that workout as humanly possible. And the number one way you do that is perfecting your form. Now, once you perfect your form, then you want to go into progressive overload. You then want to increase the weights, increase the reps slowly over time while keeping that form the same. That's key. Because if you keep your form the same, you keep your tempo the same, and the weights are going up, the reps are going up, that's when you know you are actually building muscle. Just because the weights go up and the reps go up doesn't always mean that you're building muscle. It just means that you could be using accessory muscles to get that weight up, or you could be using momentum to get the weight up. Keep your form the same, keep the tempo the same, and if the weight and the reps are going up, you're building muscle. Now, with that being said, you need to be training hard. You need to be training intense, train to failure. A lot of people do not train to failure. There's a lot of information out there that you should be keeping some reps in the tank and reserving it for later in your workout, and all that shit is bullshit. I have never trained that way. Or actually, I'll take that back. I did train that way in the beginning of my fitness journey, and I didn't see as much progress as I have the past 3 to 4 years now that I have been training to failure. You need to be pushing yourself hard in the gym. You should be exhausted after your sets. You should have to take 2, 3, 4 minute breaks in between each set so that you can actually properly recover enough for your next set. Too many times I see people in the gym and they will not take a long rest time at all because they didn't even put in enough effort in that one set they just did. If you're not actually exhausted after you do a specific set, then you're not training hard enough. Now, if you're doing a bicep curl, you're not going to be gasping for air, but you should not be able to do another rep. And if you're doing squats or you're doing Romanian deadlifts or any kind of leg movement, you should be very exhausted, and you should take 4 to 5 minutes in between each of those sets because it is so physically taxing on your body. And what you'll realize is when you train this way, you are going to build the most amount of muscle possible. When you keep reps in the tank, you're not forcing your muscles to actually need to grow. But when you train to failure and you can no longer do another rep, you are forcing your muscle to have to grow. You're giving it no other option but to grow. And that is the truest way that you build muscle. And with all this being said, you need to be tracking your lifts. I would say about 95% of people in the gym do not track their lifts at all. They're all going off the dome, all going off the top of their head, trying to remember what they did last week. But what happens when you do that is everyone tends to forget exactly what they did last week. I have legs to do later today, and if I didn't track my lifts from last week, I would have no idea the reps, the sets, the weight that I did last week. I'd have a good idea, but I wouldn't be exact. And when you have it all tracked out, it's really, really easy to keep progressing each week because now you know what reps that you need to hit in order to stay the same or to increase it a little bit. And the sad thing is there's a lot of people that don't track their lifts and they're going into the gym consistently week after week after week, and they are training really hard, but they're not pushing themselves as hard as they could because they don't know the exact weights and the exact reps that they need to shoot for to make sure they're actually progressing each week. Because in your mind, you could be thinking that you're training really hard, and you could be training really hard. But are you training as hard as you possibly can? The only way to do that is to ensure that you are doing the same amount of reps or more weight than you did the prior week. So track your lifts, and I promise you, if you do track your workouts, you're gonna see way more progress and you're gonna build a lot more muscle. Now, the next thing you should be doing is eating in a calorie surplus. Now, if you're eating in a calorie surplus, that means you're gonna be gaining a little bit of weight, but the way we're gonna do the calorie surplus is 250 to 300 calories above your calorie maintenance. Now, the reason why we're gonna keep it 250 to 300 calories is so that you do not gain weight super quickly. You're gonna be gaining about a half pound per week. If you gain any faster than that, you're gonna put on way too much excess fat, and while the scale is gonna be going up really fast, that doesn't mean that you're building muscle. Building muscle takes time. It is a very slow process. When you gain at a half pound per week, you're gonna put on minimal amount of fat, you're gonna put on just as much muscle as you possibly could, and then even if you do gain 10, 20 pounds, when you have to shred off that excess body fat that you gained during that bulk, it is gonna be a lot quicker of a process instead of having to cut off 30, 40 pounds of fat that you gained over a year's worth of a bulk. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, can't you just eat at a calorie maintenance level and gain muscle? The truth is, yes, of course you can, but you are going to gain more muscle if you're eating in a calorie surplus. It's just the fact of the matter. When you eat more calories, you're going to build more muscle. Now, there is a stopping point. Like I said, if you eat too much, you're just gonna put on way too much excess fat, and you're not really gonna get as much muscle gain as you would think. There's not as much bang for your buck when you eat more calories. 250 to 300 calories is the sweet spot. Now, with this calorie surplus, you should be eating a whole foods based diet. 90% of the foods that you should be eating should be coming from whole foods. The other 10% can come from whatever you want. And I'll get into more of that later. But when it comes to the whole foods that you're eating, the first thing you need to focus on is protein. The proteins that you should be prioritizing are lean meats. You got your chicken breast, you got your ground turkey, you got your ground beef, you got fish. Those are the keys that you should be eating every single day. You can also have things like whey protein, you can have non-fat Greek yogurt, eggs, egg whites. Those are all great options as well. And you want to be aiming to have 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you're 160 pounds, you should be eating 160 grams of protein every single day. No excuses. If you eat any less than that, you're not going to be able to build as much muscle. And if you eat any more than that, you're just going overkill, and you're actually taking away from carbs and fats, which I'll get into in a second of why those are both very important. But if you eat too much protein, you're taking away from your carbs and fats, and those both can really benefit you a lot. So just eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That is going to be how you build the most amount of muscle. Next up is carbs, and carbs are super important when it comes to building muscle. Next up is carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are super important for you when you are building muscle. A lot of people think that carbs are gonna make you fat. There's a bunch of misinformation online telling you that if you eat too many carbs, you're gonna get fat. That's not the case. I eat like 300 grams of carbs every single day, and I have a 6-pack year round. The carbs don't make you fat. Eating too many calories makes you fat. So you need to make sure you're prioritizing your carbohydrates. Now, what kind of carbohydrates should you be eating? You should be eating white rice, brown rice, oatmeal, potatoes, fruits. You got bagels, whole grain toast. All these things are great options for carbohydrates. And the key is you prioritize these carbohydrates before and after your workout. Now, the reason you eat your carbohydrates before your workout is so that you can actually have enough energy to go into that lift and train super hard. When you train without carbohydrates, you're not gonna have enough energy, you're not gonna be as strong during your lift, and that means you're not gonna build as much muscle. So eat some quick digesting carbs before your workout. I always have chicken and rice before my workouts. It's a perfect pre-workout meal, lean source of protein, fast digesting carb. You can eat it an hour and a half before your lift, and you go in there and you crush a workout. Now, after your workout, you want to have carbohydrates as well, because you use up a lot of that energy, a lot of those carbohydrates that you had beforehand, and you want to refill your glycogen stores. So you want to have some other source of carbohydrate after. So again, anything, rice, potatoes, oatmeal, anything like that. Get some carbs in your system, help refuel those glycogen stores, and you're going to build as much muscle as possible. And the last macronutrient is fats, and a lot of people like to neglect fats because, again, another thing, people think that eating too many fats are going to make you fat, and that's not true also. A lot of people forget about fats too because people love carbs, people obsess over the protein, but fats, healthy fats, are the things that are going to help you regulate your hormones and make you actually feel good. When you don't have enough fats in your system, you're going to feel like shit. Your testosterone can go down, your libido can go down, your sex drive, your hunger levels, your cortisol levels, you're going to feel stressed. Bunch of different things. Now, when you're bulking, this typically isn't the case. When you're cutting, this is more of a thing that you should worry about, but you should still be getting some healthy fats in your diet when you are bulking. Now, foods that you should be prioritizing every single day that have really good healthy fats are things like olive oil. You got fish, like salmon is really, really good for healthy fats. You got your eggs, avocados, nuts, nut butters. These are all great options for healthy fats. And the last thing for nutrition that so many people neglect, especially when they're trying to gain weight, is vegetables. I don't care what your goal is, whether you're trying to lose weight, stay the same, or gain weight. I don't care what your goal is. You need to be eating vegetables. Vegetables are obviously a healthy food. Everyone knows they're a healthy food. They have tons of micronutrients. They're going to make you feel a lot better during the whole process. If you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to get lean, vegetables are an absolute cheat code. But even if you're gaining weight, you should still be having a serving or two of vegetables every single day. Get those micronutrients in that you don't get from other foods, and you're going to feel a lot better. Every single time you eat vegetables, you feel a lot better, right? Find some vegetables that you like. You don't have to eat broccoli if you don't like broccoli. You don't have to eat asparagus if you don't like asparagus. Find some vegetables that you enjoy that you can eat every single day, and you're going to be fine. Next up is rest days. Now, there's a lot of people that think that more is always better. They need to train as much as possible to build as much muscle as possible, and that's not the case at all. This is a mistake that I made early in my fitness journey. I thought I needed to go every single day to build as much muscle as possible, and if I took a rest day, I was actually going to be losing muscle. No, this is all false. You don't have to go to the gym every single day. You should try to get some physical activity every single day, but you don't need to weight train every single day, and you shouldn't weight train every single day. I would say go to the gym 4 to 5 days per week, and as long as you're training hard and with high intensity, like I said earlier in the video, then you're going to be building as much muscle as possible. Rest days are absolutely essential if you want to build as much muscle as possible, because here's the thing. You don't build muscle when you are in the gym. You don't build muscle when you're eating food. You build muscle when you are recovering, when you are sleeping, when you are taking those rest days. Because when you're in the gym and you're training super hard, you're actually breaking down that specific muscle that you're training. And you need specific time after that workout to have you fully heal that muscle so that you can go into the gym again and train super hard. When you don't have adequate rest in between each session, then you're not going to be fully healed enough to actually train that muscle hard into failure again. So it's going to lead to potential injury, but you're also not going to be as strong for that lift. And this is why so many people don't actually see the results that they want to see in the gym, because they don't give their body enough time to actually fully heal that muscle that they just trained, and they try to train it too quickly afterwards, and they're actually not training it as hard as they possibly could because it's not fully recovered. What I would recommend is you take at least 2 rest days per week. This is what I typically do right now, and you should be strategically placing these rest days in between your weight training sessions. Now, what this looks like is you want to make sure that you have at least 72 hours in between training a specific muscle group. So for example, if you train chest on Monday, you should not train chest again until Thursday. If you train legs on Tuesday, you shouldn't train legs again until at least Friday. And I'm talking at least 72 hours. You can have 4 days in between each session. That's perfectly fine too. But you want to make sure you're getting at least 72 hours in between those sessions, because that's going to give your body enough time to actually adequately recover those muscles. Now, for smaller muscle groups like your biceps or your calves, you can train them way more frequently, and you probably don't need 72 hours in between those muscle groups. But for bigger muscle groups like your quads, your hamstrings, your back, and your chest, you definitely need at least 72 hours in between each session. And additionally, with rest, you need to focus on your sleep, right? I won't lie to you and tell you that I am the absolute best with getting enough sleep, right? Like last night I got 6 hours of sleep, but you should be doing your absolute best to try to get 8 hours of sleep every single night, because it has been a proven fact for so many years that sleep is going to make you a healthier person, make you feel a lot better, make you have a lot more energy. And this is when you are actually building the most amount of muscle, is when you're actually sleeping. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not building as much muscle. So me only getting 6 hours of sleep last night, I definitely didn't build as much muscle as I could have if I got 8 hours of sleep. Now, One night is not going to hurt you in the long term, right? But you should, again, be prioritizing trying to get at least 8 hours of sleep every single night. Prioritize your sleep. Try to get as high quality sleep as possible so that you can actually build as much muscle as possible. And the last thing is just be consistent. The thing is, everyone knows you need to train hard. Everyone knows you need to go to the gym. Everyone knows you need to eat healthier. Everyone knows you need to eat in a calorie surplus and eat more protein and get adequate sleep. Everyone knows these things, right? But people don't stay consistent for a long period of time. People are so impatient. And what you have to realize is that gaining muscle is a slow process. Gaining weight doesn't have to be a slow process, right? You can eat a ton of calories and gain super quickly, but you're going to gain a ton of fat. Building muscle takes time. And if you take 6 to 7 months to build muscle, you can build a good amount of muscle in that time period. But what a lot of people don't do is they don't give themselves that amount of time. They give up way too quickly. They don't see results after 2 or 3 weeks, and they give up. Or they're not consistent with going. One week they go 5 days, the next week they go 4 days, then they take a whole week off, and then they go back for 1 or 2 days, and then they're all over the place. They're not consistent. But if you're consistently going to the gym the same amount each and every week, you're tracking your lifts, you're pushing yourself close to failure, you're tracking all your lifts to make sure you're actually progressing, you're eating good foods, 90% of the time you're eating whole foods, 10% you're eating whatever else you want, so it's sustainable. You are prioritizing protein, you're getting enough sleep, you're taking your rest days, you're doing all these things that you need to do. If you're doing that consistently, you're going to see the most amount of progress. Most people don't stay consistent, and that's why they never see the long-term results that they're looking for in their physique. Building muscle takes time. Be patient. Nothing great happens overnight. Building a great physique is a great thing, and anything great takes time. So you need to be patient, you need to be consistent, and I promise you, over a 6 to 7 month period, if you do all those things, they're simple things. They're not easy all the time, but they're simple. And if you do these simple things on a consistent basis and you're patient, you're going to see amazing results in your physique over the next 6 to 7 months. And I promise you, if you follow this plan to a T over the next 6 to 7 months, you will be amazed with the amount of muscle that you can actually build and how much you can actually transform your physique in 6 to 7 months by the end of 2025. Now, if you've watched this whole video and you think that this plan will inevitably get you to build more muscle and build the physique that you're actually after, you're right. But maybe you fear that you lack the accountability. You don't know if you can actually do it on your own. Maybe you have extra questions. If that's the case, I want you to click the first link in the description. We can hop on a call, talk about your goals, talk about your struggles, talk about the questions that you might have. And then if you're a good fit for the program, we can get you enrolled in the program. And I will say that the guys who join right now, this is the absolute best time to join because 7 months from the time of this, I will say. Now, if you've watched this entire video and you think that this plan will inevitably help you build as much muscle as possible, build that dream physique that you're looking for, you're right. But maybe you lack the accountability to actually do it on your own. Maybe you need some extra help. Maybe you have some questions that you still have after watching this video. I want you to click the first link in the description if that's you. We can talk about your goals, talk about your struggles, talk about any questions that you might have. And if you're a good fit, I'd love to have you on the team. Now, I only take guys that are actually serious about building the best physique possible, so don't click that link if you aren't serious. And I will say for the guys who do join right now, this is an absolutely perfect time to join because it's 7 months before the end of 2025, and that's a perfect amount of time to build an insane amount of muscle and completely transform your physique. So if you're interested, click that link and book a call. But besides that, guys, if you guys enjoyed today's video, drop me a like, hit subscribe. I post videos like this every single week. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video.